My loves, I am so happy and so pleased to announce that this episode is brought to you by my very own company, Savage Chocolates, which is all about cultivating a more loving relationship to your body and to food. You know, we don't really believe in guilty pleasure. We just believe in pleasure done well. Right? Have you ever had that candy bar or thing of ice cream and you eat it and you're like, wait, I don't remember eating that. Wait, where'd that go? Well, that's why I created Savage Chocolates, because I know the importance of pleasure, and I think that we don't slow down enough to actually experience it. And so if you are wanting to eat mindfully, if you are wanting to be reminded of how to actually experience your pleasure, then please go to www.savagelosangeles.com to order your goods. All right, you guys, let's get to it.
Thank you so much for being here. You guys, today we have Sarah Buino on the podcast, and I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
Me too.
Can you talk to us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why the fuck you do it?
Yes. Thank you for cussing. That is my love language. So my name is Sarah Buino. I am the owner of a group practice in Chicago, group therapy practice. I am a podcaster as well, which you'll be on my podcast very soon too.
Oh my God.
I teach at a local university about addiction, and I'm a dog mom. I'm a wife, and I sing. So I do too much. And yeah, it's too much.
It's not too much. It's perfect. You know, I have to tell you, I pretty much match everything that you just said, except for the therapist and the wife part. But I am a dog mom, and I, do sing, and
should do a duet.
Yeah, but truly, and we're both drinking a LaCroix.
Right.
Yes.
Bubbly is my sparkling beverage of choice. Same. But today, Alexa, seriously. Get out.
Yeah, I won't. This is happening. This is real life.
I love it. What
kind of dog do you have?
He is, let's see, I have to remember all of the parts. He's like almost 50% Chihuahua. So he's 10 pounds of terror. And there's Pomeranian, there's Beagle, there's Min Pin, there's Rat Terrier, and Fox Terrier. Yes, those are all the parts.
I love it.
His name is Batman because he looks like a bat. Like when we first got him, his little ears, like if you look at a picture of a bat and you look at him, you're like, no diff. Yeah. And he has such a big personality that we were like, Batman is kind of hilarious. Yeah.
I need it. I love it.
Yeah, right? Well, tell me about your baby.
Oh, my sweet little bear. Well, I have a French bulldog named Hugo. I know. So cute. He's such a pumpkin. And so he has the bat ears too. So we got the bat ear babies.
Oh, I wish they could play together.
I know, I wish so too. And I was walking Hugo today, and he's so he's a really kind little boy. And this dog was walking with their owner. The dog was walking with the owner. Yeah. Not the owner was walking with the dog. But, right. And I was like, my dog's really friendly. And he was like, me too. And Hugo went up and the dog bit his cheek and he started bleeding. It was very dramatic. So Hugo's in recovery on the floor.
Hugo. Well, we send you love, Hugo.
Thank you.
Speedy recovery.
Thank you. For those of you who are like, ladies, you
get to the content.
Get to the conversation. I just want to let you know that patience is a virtue. And if you have a dog, you fucking get it.
You get it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And this is how I do my show too.
Great.
This is just how it's supposed to be.
This is let's keep it real. Let's drink our LaCroix and enjoy the moment.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about your practice and what inspired you to create this practice? What got you into it? As I was telling you moments before, and my friend Mark Grove said this, you take your mess and you turn it into your message. Like me with my anorexia, I now own a chocolate company trying to teach people how to eat mindfully and with presence and pleasure and a permission slip to eat. So talk to me about your mess, talk to me about your message and all the things.
Sure. I guess I know I became a therapist because my family was fucked up and I was trying to figure out how. because it wasn't obvious. Like when I was a kid, I would never have said I struggle with trauma. I would have never said there was addiction in my family, never would have said all those things. But it turns out, $60,000 and a graduate degree later. Oh yeah, there was some of that stuff. Oh, how cute.
How convenient. Yeah.
Right? How cute. I'll be paying for that for the rest of my life in more ways than one. So that's why I became a therapist. And I remember the moment I had gotten my undergraduate degree in music education, singer, didn't student teach because I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. So I have this useless degree. I ended up in, arts administration. So I worked in box offices and I ended up working for a university in their concert hall. And I was working with the craziest motherfuckers. And I was like, I need to go back to school to figure out how to deal with shit like this. And I was sitting with my therapist at the time. And I remember being like, I don't think I'm smart enough to go back to school. And she was like, you don't even have to take the GRE. It's just a 2-year degree. And I was like, bye. And I literally signed up for the statistics course the next day that you had to take as a prerequisite.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And the rest is history. So that's how I became a therapist.
Beautiful.
And then I started my group practice because of codependency. Because
thank you for owning that. I really appreciate that.
I mean, right? I actually try to save people who are like, oh, I want the passive income of owning a group practice. There is nothing passive about it, right? We were just talking about being business owners and all the headaches that come with that.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, I was in solo practice and I just got so many referrals that I was turning them away. And then a friend was like, oh, I was thinking about starting a practice. And I was like, well, here, take my referrals, join me. And then it just keeps escalating. Yeah, it was born. And then I was like, well, fuck, now these are golden handcuffs because I need this income. So it's like,
yes.
But I'm glad. It's like people with children. I don't have children and I don't want to have children. The business is my child and my employees are my children, and not in an infantilizing way, but in a way that I can't imagine my life without them. Yes. I would never make a different decision. And yet it's hard. It's really, really hard.
Yeah. It's where your energy's going.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's totally huge. And it's so true. It's like, man, we adopt these things that take up that space and all of a sudden they are our babies, just like our little fur babies. It's so real.
Right.
Do you specialize in anything in particular as a therapist?
I started out specializing in addiction, which is cute that I didn't recognize it in my family. And I was like, oh, I don't know. These are my people because I can cuss with them and whatever.
Yeah, we're cool.
Yeah. And
I get it.
Honestly, personally, I'm attracted to the darkness of addiction because I understood that internal just darkness. I mean, that's just the only way I can describe it. The dark, twisty, I'm going to fuck shit up and get in my own way. I related to that so hardcore. Yeah. As of late, I've done more trauma training over the past couple years. And so that's attracted more trauma clients to me. Totally. And, I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon. So I've been, also attracting other folks who have loved ones who suffer with addiction. So that's really where my love is now. Cause I've recognized there's something in early recovery that it's so important and it's so special, but that's no longer the work that I want to do. I want the people who have that solid foundation are like, let's go to the depths of the ocean inside my soul. That's where I want to go. Yeah.
Go off. I love that. And then, I mean, look, therapy has completely saved my life. I just made something on TikTok the other day. I'm new to TikTok. So I'm that person right now.
I have no idea. You have to give me a tutorial.
I will 100% give you the tea because it's fascinating. Yeah. It's a whole other world. But there's this thing and it was I made a meme that was when people ask you why you're in therapy, it's the question is, why the fuck are you not? Right? I just don't know how people do it. And that's not a judgment. I just genuinely don't know how I did life pre-therapy because living so unconsciously is actually it's actually like pretty miraculous. Like, how did I not like end up in a ditch somewhere without the like ability to have boundaries, or like the ability to trust my intuition, or the ability to like respond more effectively to this situation. Like I just, it's like actually what gives me faith that there is a God.
Right.
I'm like, how did I do this before?
Yeah.
If you could like, go.
I was just going to say, someone said, I can't remember if this is a movie, a meme, a client said it or what, but somebody said, you know, not being in therapy is pain that you don't choose. Being in therapy is pain you choose.
Ooh.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Cause the pain part is like, life isn't for sissies, man.
No, being
like,
human.
Yeah.
God, please hear me. I really want to be a dog in my next life. That is the shit. If I have to come back to Earth, I want to be a dog, specifically a dachshund.
Oh, that is so sweet. Oh my God.
I'm really loving this vibe.
Yeah, me too. Me too. 100. And I just love that it's specifically a dachshund because they're such little pumpkins.
I know.
They're such little pumpkins, and they're always well taken care of too. Like people love those babies. Yep. And they like get to eat whatever they want. Like in some ways, like right. They're kind of like French bulldogs in that sense where they like don't have a stomach stopper.
Nope.
Like they're just always ready.
Yep.
So
give me all the cheese.
Yeah. All the cheese, all the like prosciutto, like go nuts.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So now we've cleared that up. Lord, hear our prayer. God, great spirit, divine mother, all of it. Hear our prayer. We're gonna be dachshunds. No, totally. I mean, that's real. Life is not for sissies. The human experience is, the whole, that actually really pisses me off. I was writing about this the other day. I don't know if you remember that for a while, and maybe it's still going on. It's like out of my holographic world at this point, so I don't see it anymore. But for a while, the whole no bad days thing was a thing. Like that quote. Yeah, I'm glad you don't know it.
I would have just punched every single hashtag in the face. That's unacceptable.
Unacceptable. Like no bad days. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, yes, there are bad days. Let's just learn how to deal with the bad days.
Right. Exactly.
Like my mom passed away 4 months ago, and it's it's a journey. And it's like, if someone told me like no bad days, I'd be like, dude, my mom just fucking died. Like,
right.
Yeah. No bad days. Like suck my D, like not like, right. F off. Like, how do we deal? I mean, I know this is like the most blanketed statement ever, but like, how do we deal with bad days? Like, what do we do? What do you do?
That's a great question. First off, that's another thing we have in common is Dead Mom Club.
I'm so sorry.
So it's
not a fun club.
And for me, and I'm going to say for my mom, it's probably better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, my mom was in so much pain. Like I'm so, and of course, like our relationship was magnificent and difficult, right. But I think it's hard no matter what to lose them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found with my grief, because my dad actually died 9 months before that. So it was like wham, bam in 2014.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah. Super fun. The more complex the relationship, the more complex the grief. Right. Because when my dachshund died about a year and a half ago, Oscar, we have like, have you gotten like any like the stuffed pillows that's like the picture of the dog?
No.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I've seen them. I just don't have one.
Well, we have one of Oscar, so he's right over there. So I'm pointing to you, dear Oscar.
We love you.
He died. The sadness that I felt, and I could compare it to how I felt about my parents' death. It was so pure. Like when people say grief is love that has nowhere to go, that's like when a pet dies. When someone you have a very complicated relationship dies, there's not only grief, there's anger, there's relief, there's, freedom. I mean, there's so many nuances that go with that. And I am on a campaign to like strike sorry for your loss from our vocabulary because that's so trite. And it's so like, how do you fucking know it's a loss? Like, and even if it is a loss, that is almost, it's just not enough, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what your relationship is like with your mom. So I'm not going to say until I know, right? And you said that you had a great relationship and it was difficult. So
Yes,
I can just say like, I'm sorry that happened, right? That you have to deal with the struggle of that.
Can we talk about grief for a second?
Let's. I know you asked me another question, but this one's, I think, more important.
This one I think is more important, and I fuck the other one. I don't remember what I said. But we live in a culture that is like so cut off from grief. Yeah. It's like, okay, you get like 3 days and then you're back to work. Okay. You get like this much and you're done. It's like, yeah, you cry about it for a second. And then like, if you keep crying, you're weird or if you express something other than like, if you do express anger, if you do express relief, or if you do, then you're like kind of fucked up. Like it's this weird, you know, like we know that there are stages to grief and like I've experienced them firsthand in this situation with my mom. But why do you think that we have this relationship to it? And what can we do to maybe have more compassion for ourselves in the process?
My answer might be confusing. I don't know. We'll see where this goes. My answer is capitalism.
Great.
Because feelings aren't productive.
Yeah.
They don't make us money. Right. I'm so glad that you're into this too, because it's funny, since the light bulb turned on for me with the connection of like capitalism and racism and the patriarchy, all of that, I was like, oh, now I can't stop seeing it everywhere. So
the web is so thick, like it's so long.
Right. So when we think from like, you know, a productivity standard, of course we only get 3 days off when a loved one dies, because we have to get back to work because there are widgets to be made, Alexa.
Yeah, excuse me.
Right?
Pardon me.
Right.
Get back to it.
So I think my hope is that more of us are awakening to that reality, that we are in a society that doesn't have room for rest, sadness, anything other than, like, the question that you'd asked before was, you know, how do you deal with bad days? Part of it is knowing that that's the fucking human experience, knowing that rest and play and grief are also part of the human experience, not just being productive, making things happen, right? We are all wired that way. Or not, we're not wired that way. We are trained. Yeah. That way. It's part of this system. It's like if you were to take the archetype of the United States of America, it'd be like the renegade, the entrepreneur, the like builder, the doer. It's very yang. It's very aggressive. There's not, you know, where then you go to a different culture and it's like, oh no, the archetype is like the feminine. The archetype is, you know, the artist, the, you know, whatever. And that's just what we are accustomed to. Right. And because I feel like our culture is shifting and we are asking for more space for the feminine. I think that's why there's so many fucking shootings, because like white men are like, what? Wait, what? I have defined myself my whole life by this grind. All of a sudden you want me to change that, and I have to respect you, and I have to show emotion. I'd rather shoot people.
Right.
And I don't mean to be flippant with that. I want to be very cognizant that there might be people listening to this who've been, you know, had someone that they've lost because of all the violence. Like, I am so beside myself about it these days that but I'm angry. And for me, anger has been an emotion that's been very shy for a long time. And it's only been like the past couple of years that I'm feeling it. And holy fuck, is it here?
Oh, and it should be.
Yeah.
There's some very productive things that come out of anger and rage. Right. Hugely productive. You're so right about this asking people to change when they have never been asked to change. It's, you know, I like pride myself, and I pride myself on leaning into change and shift and knowing that that's like a part of my human experience. And guess what? I still don't always fucking love it.
Right.
So imagine if you're like that person that's like, this is the way it is. This is the way it's supposed to be. There's only masculine and feminine. There's only male and female. You can't have transgender people. You can't have, LGBTQ,
Right.
You can't, because that hasn't been, so change is petrifying. And anyone that we hate, it's not so much that we hate them, it's that we're afraid.
Yeah.
That's my experience with it. Like men who hate women, it's not like, oh, you hate women. It's like, you're just afraid that I'm actually fucking more powerful than you are.
Yep.
And like, that makes you less than on the scale.
Right.
Because you don't actually think that you were enough.
Right.
Your worth is put in something external.
Right. Well, narcissism is like, people think of narcissists like they think that they're so amazing. Like we can use Donald Trump as a perfect poster boy, right? He thinks he's so amazing, but really he's empty inside and has no sense of self. That's really what narcissism is. And patriarchy and narcissism, like that's a quote unquote powerful way. It's like a pride identification way instead of a vulnerable way, which shame would be the more like vulnerable way to express our fear of what's inside. So this pride based like narcissism, like that's all of the like patriarchal toxic masculine shit that I don't know when we're going to move out of this phase, but it is,
it's brutal.
It doesn't even get a word. It's just,
It's just a feeling. It's just yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And it's hard because it's like, it's not about, I feel that sense of empathy because I think there is like they're just figuring it out too.
Right.
Yeah. And again, they've been in their own golden handcuffs with the inability to have any sort of emotion. It's like stoicism and not stoicism in the like context of like a religious context, but like stoic.
Yeah.
That can't be easy either.
I mean, my husband is such a great example of the tension because he is a very like I think about people in terms of like energy, right? If you have a masculine energy, a feminine energy, I have a very masculine energy. He has a very feminine energy, right? Yeah, this is why we love each other. You and me,
immediately,
and me and my husband.
Yeah.
But
I know you all can't see it, but I'm doing the like peace eye thing, like the eyes thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I see you.
I see.
Right. And so his dad died, gosh, was it like 15 years ago now? But I remember like at that time he couldn't cry and he was very concerned that he couldn't cry because he knew he was sad.
Right.
But then, he's been in men's groups for the past, 8 or so years now and has been really trying to figure out how to fucking feel. Right. And he's a feminine man, not a female like energy type person. Yes. I don't want to say he's not effeminate. Like he's not gay. He's like, he'll be so offended to hear this. But, but even if he's someone who is in touch with that side of himself, is struggling to actually let himself feel emotion. How could somebody who comes from the middle of Indiana is told to, have guns, whatever, treat your chick like a side piece, whatever it is that they're taught. How could that person ever have a chance without a lot of intervention, right?
Oh my God, can we all please get into therapy and like maybe take some psychedelics? Like,
yes, I think we should run for president. I had this joke the other day on Facebook, like, let's run for president and our platform is therapy for everyone.
I mean, really though, like, honestly, I thought that I was writing about this the other day too. I was like, God, if therapy were mandated,
right?
Like, if therapy were mandated, think of how much less crime, how much less, abuse, less shootings. I'm like, oh.
And think how much more tired therapists would be because the people didn't want to be there.
Yeah. Oh my God. 100%. Right. That's true. We would need so many more therapists and B, we would need like support upon support upon support.
Yeah.
for the therapist. That actually brings me to my next question. You were talking to me a bit earlier about support, how important it is for therapists to be in therapy as well.
And it shocks me because I think we all do this on some level. Like, we expect people to show up in the world the way we do, right? And so I expect that everybody who's a therapist is like, oh, I am going to do the deep work. I'm going to excavate this shit. But there's plenty of therapists who are so scared to do their own work that they don't do it. And, there's the saying that we can only take people as far as we've gone ourselves. And I see that being true. I hear a ton of stories of clients who come in and they tell me what happened in their previous therapy. And I try to reserve judgment because I know how hard it is to make the decision to like jump off a cliff and do that deep dive. But at the same time, I think that if a therapist isn't willing to do that work, they could really harm their client by not seeing something, so many things. I had somebody once, I don't think they were my client. I think it was somebody I was supervising, and they were telling me about their client who basically they said that their previous therapist, they would take 30 minutes to talk about the client's issue and then 30 minutes to talk about whatever was going on for the therapist. And I was like horrified. This person was paying for that for I don't know how long.
Oh dear. Yeah. I have a therapist now who I absolutely adore. And, just because there's been such growth since working with her. She's really shifted so many things. She's
Good
really,
for you.
Oh my God, I'm so grateful. But I did have a therapist before her for like 3 years. Where it was like that. It wasn't like she would talk about herself for 30 minutes, but it just wasn't, we were mostly working on eating disorder stuff at the time. And there was just nothing productive about it. It was like, she was making it all about the food rather than like the actual cause, which is like the behavior, like why I was actually engaging in that behavior and like what I was trying to avoid and what I was like.
Well, what's the trauma underneath that? Right.
Exactly. And there was nothing about that. It was all just like, okay, like tell me about your food behavior and like, what can we do about that behavior?
Well, let's talk about our cultural misunderstanding of trauma, right? It really is only like the past 2 years that I've truly understood my trauma history, and I'm still trying to piece things together. Okay. And if I've been a therapist for 12 years and have extensive postmaster's training, I should have gotten this before, right? And so if a therapist is not educated in trauma and the general population isn't educated about trauma, like it's really, really just been in the past like 10 years or so that the trauma field has started exploding. And, I told you before we started recording, I practice a type of therapy called NARM, the neuroaffective relational model. And, we talk about developmental trauma essentially just being any failure in the environment to meet your needs the way you needed them to be met. That's it. So you don't have to have fucked up parents to have trauma. You don't have to have experienced, a sexual assault or something else that you deem as terrible, right? Trauma can just simply be misattunement.
Thank you for that. Because I think, truly, because people are like, oh, whatever, like no big deal. My life has been what it's been. It's fine. It's like, it's not like I had anything bad happen, like big bad, like capital T trauma, like trauma, it happens all. But my freaking French bulldog that you can probably hear snoring right now.
I can't, but I wish I could.
Oh my God. Well, I can put the mic there if you want. Like him getting bit in the face today was fun. Like I walked with him for an hour after that. And I have to tell you, and because I have like tremendous body awareness, because I've been a yoga and meditation teacher for the last 8 years. Like, I'm like, wow, my nervous system is really upregulated. Like, wow, I feel like I have cortisol rushing through my body right now. Yeah. Wow. I could cry at the drop of a needle. Like, and it's like, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but when your body is in that fight, flight, freeze response, it's like the issues are indeed in the tissues, and the body remembers.
Right. And if you think about, developmental trauma usually is chronic, right? It's not like,
Right.
let's say like you were hungry and your parent didn't understand just one time. Like that's not it. It's really constant happening over a long period of time. Right. And it's often, I think for our generation, I'm guessing you're a little bit younger than me, but probably within 10 years around the same. I think for our generation, essentially, our parents were so interested in like, they were trying so hard to attune that they were misattuning because they were still resonating with their own trauma internally.
Yes.
And hadn't done that work. Right. Because I can't see you clearly if I can't see myself clearly. Again, going back to therapists doing their own work. Right. So what I've learned a lot in NARM is how much my shit was getting in the way of the client's own work. So like if you were to come to me and you're like, oh, I'm struggling with this thing, I would tell myself I have to make something happen for you. Because you're paying me, so I'm pressuring myself to make sure that you change. I don't have any fucking control over that. And I was pressuring myself for the last 12 years. And finally now I'm like, all I can do is hold a mirror. And it's your job to change. And you'll keep moving. I'll keep moving the mirror, just show you like that. And that is all a product of my trauma because I had to continue to contort myself to try to show up in a way that was acceptable to my family. So we can't get away from it. We got to do the work.
You just hit so many like ding, ding, dings for me. Yeah. That's so important. Well, it's this pushing rather than allowing thing too. Like, I'm going to push this healing on you versus like allowing for people to have a space for them to actually get it themselves, because we can know something, but until we know something like in our heart, in our resonance and like, oh shit, I just like, whoa, I came to that on my own. Like then we don't know it. Like, we've all seen the like, oh, you should love yourself. It's like thrown around like confetti, like cool, great, awesome, cool.
How?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's like, how? What does that look like for me? Like, what does that feel like for me? And until you engage in that in your own way of like, oh, this is somatically what this feels like and resonates for me. You can't do that for me.
Right. I can't. And like, nobody can do that for me either.
No, of course not. And mirrors, that is it. Like people, what other people? Like they're all reflections of you. And how beautiful for you, especially with codependent stuff. Like, I relate. Like I used to walk in even to a yoga class to be like, oh, I want to make sure I'm giving everybody exactly what they need. Cause they're here. They really need this. And I'm like, I'm going to fucking teach the class I want to fucking teach today.
Right.
This is what I'm dealing with. So let's see if we matched. Let's see if we aligned. If you didn't, it's okay. Live and be well.
Right. Exactly.
And it creates so much space.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny. I take it in a deep breath as you say that. Exactly. I was doing group supervision with my staff today, and one of my staff members, I know he'll be fine with me picking on him. He and I share this very much like pressuring ourselves. And, he was talking about this client where he feels really stuck. And one of the things we talked about today was playing with silence. Right? What's it like as a therapist to just sit there and say nothing? And he was like, whoa, all the fucked up shit that I tell myself when I'm sitting there in silence. But when we create space, the client's going to fill it. And then that's information, right? Sometimes the client fills it with a story, which is just the same. They're essentially like, we re-traumatize ourselves by telling the same story over and over. And it's just like the neural pathways. We kind of get caught in that, like, I don't know if you ever went to an amusement park that had like the cars that were on the track. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it's like when we just continue to tell our story. And we've been finding with the pandemic, a lot of the clients who are coming in right now don't know how to do therapy. They think that they're just supposed to come in and vent. But it's like, we're not just telling the story. Just telling the story is just continuing to reinforce what you've already been doing. What we want to invite is a reflection on, oh, isn't it interesting that I feel more comfortable telling this story than I do feeling a feeling, or, whatever it is.
My God, that's so huge. And again, I've paid a lot of money to do that.
Right. We all have. Yeah. And that's, my hope too is that I hope we can change the education system for therapists, because first of all, getting a 2-year master's degree, you're just scratching the surface. But I think if we started with a foundation of every disorder is a product of trauma, how much differently we would be working with people. And I don't know that there are any universities that necessarily do that. And there's very little universities that I think incorporate any sort of somatic training, embodied training.
It's kind of like doctors who get like a 2-week course in nutrition.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like getting their PhD and they're, learning about every single, cell in our body. And then they're like, oh yeah, we'll cover nutrition for 2 weeks. It's like,
right.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yep. Right.
That'll do it.
And they get a 2-week rotation for mental health.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. I used to work with doctors who were addicted. And were in maybe losing their licenses because of it. And they would tell me every time, like we would talk about the brain, we would talk about how, the system gets hijacked. And of course, like you're going to continue to choose the drug or the drink over and over again. And they'd be like, I should have learned this in school. I'm like, right. I know. Go back and tell your school. Like we just have to advocate for change once we know better.
Yes. There's so many things that are being integrated around this. And I think people are finally having these conversations where it's like, it's not just, it's not just mental hygiene, it's physical hygiene. It's not just physical hygiene, it's emotional hygiene. It's like, it all has to, that's holistic health. That's really, What? Bingo, bango, bongo. Like, yeah, that's so good.
And I'm so glad more people are having these conversations. I think there is a shift, and I think we're at the beginning of the shift. So I don't know that in our lifetimes we're going to see the fruit of all of this labor, but I'm hopeful that generations, not my lineage, because I'm not having kids, but someone's, whoever is having children in the world, like I just think about our generation having kids, knowing what we know about the importance of therapy, about holistic healing, about clean eating, like all of the things. And then what the generations after that are going to be like. That is so cool. And I hope I'm a ghost. I get to haunt somewhere really cool and I get to see all the shit.
Yes. Like
as a ghost dachshund.
I was just going to say a dachshund.
Yes, or I just come back as a dachshund. Wouldn't it be, I love to fantasize about like dogs' inner life. And we always used to say that like Oscar was like an old soul and he was so wise. So I'm going to put out in the universe that when I come back as a dachshund, that I'm going to have all my human knowledge and I'm just going to like watch and enjoy.
Okay. That's actually really cool.
That's what I want. And that should probably be a Pixar movie. Somebody call me and I will sell you the rights to that. TM.
That's so good. Okay, wait. So did you see the movie Soul?
No, fuck Disney Plus. Fuck all of these new platforms. I really want to see Soul, but I refuse to pay $6.99.
Okay, and I'm the worst, but I did a free trial and then I quit. I did a trial.
I already did the free trial.
Oh, see, there you go.
Maybe I could make up a new email.
Do it.
Okay.
Sorry, Disney Plus. You do not sponsor this podcast.
Don't do us.
If you want me to say nicer things, you should sponsor this podcast. But truly, that is the reason I saw it, because it was right. It came out right after my mom passed. Oh. And I was like, oh, this would be nice. And I hate to like spoil, but like a little bit of what you just said is involved in that film. Okay. So they may have beat you to it a little bit. I know.
Well,
yeah, but do see it. If you guys haven't seen Soul, I do recommend it.
Yeah, I've heard it's so good, and maybe I'll fucking just pay $6.99 for 1 month. Watch it for a night.
Yeah. It's worth it. It's worth it. $6.99 for that. I think so. Okay. So if you were to, if you could recommend, I just realized I'm like, oh, it's already been 45 minutes. I'm like, hello. If you could recommend 3 books to us that would maybe help us cultivate a deeper understanding of self, or 3 books that have changed your life or shifted something within you, what would you say?
Dig. First would be Healing Developmental Trauma by Lawrence Heller.
Great.
So that's the guy who developed NARM, and I'm obsessed with NARM. And so that's basically like an intro to what it's all about. And there's so many pieces in that I think you specifically, just based on our conversation today, will be like, whoa, I identify with a lot of this.
Yeah.
So that would be one. What is it called? The Racial Healing Handbook. That one is really lovely, and it's written by a person of color. And, you know, we didn't talk about anti-racism, but that's another big passion of mine, inviting.
We'll have to have you on again.
Great. Let's do it. I mean, 2 white ladies talking about anti-racism, though, maybe not the cutest,
maybe not.
But so I do just want to put that in there, that's a beautiful book because it's actually written for white people and people of color.
Great.
And it's an actual workbook. So you fill out things in that. And what else has changed my life? I don't read any fiction. I only read. Right. This is totally off the wall, and I'm kind of thinking you might be into it. I don't know about your listeners, but it's a book on ancestor veneration. I can't even remember the title. Cool. I'll have to send it to you, but since my parents are dead, I really got interested in mediumship and connecting with the afterlife. Great. With that, we should have a podcast about just the witchy shit.
I love the witchy shit. Let's go.
We'll do that on mine. We'll do that. We'll go there on mine. Mm-hmm.
Did you see on Netflix?
Yes. Surviving Death.
Surviving Death. Thank you.
I watched it instantly. Yes.
Me too. Voraciously. I was like,
yeah. Totally. I have a bunch of podcast recommendations for you to listen to too, because I'm so into ghosts right now.
So good. My little dachshund ghost. I'm so excited. First of all, like, such a joy to talk with you. Yes. You're so fucking cool.
Thank you. This gave me life.
Oh, me too. How can we all connect to you?
You can, I didn't even tell you what the name of my podcast. It's called Conversations with a Wounded Healer. So you can listen to that.
Therapists, do your therapy, because the wounded healer is the best healer.
Right? Yeah. So you can listen to that. Instagram is probably the best way to connect to me. It's at Head Heart Therapy, which is the name of my practice. Thank you. Which is what you said earlier with the, right? That's exactly why I named it that.
Love it.
Our website is headhearttherapy.com. Yeah. Check us out. Come hang, connect, do the shit.
So into it. Well, I can't wait to talk to you again. You're the bee's knees.
You too.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for carving out the time to listen to this wisdom, to listen to all this goodness. Once again, gentle reminder to please check out savagelosangeles.com to learn more about my new company that I'm so proud of. I hope it inspires you to create and cultivate a life that you dig. And also, if you are down and have, 10 seconds, then please give this podcast a 5-star review on iTunes. Super easy. Just give it 5 stars, maybe say a few kind words. And if you dug it, please share it with your friends. I would be over the moon with gratitude. All right. You guys are the bee's knees. Much love. Stay savage.